Welcome to Alicante, Spain for the start of Stage 1 in the Ocean Race Sprint, the very first edition of this three-stage competition from our 6 VO65 teams. I'm Niall Best, and we have the perfect conditions waiting for our sailors out on the water, with racing about to get underway in just a few minutes' time. Now, I'm joined by Sam Davies, round the world sailor and previous ocean race skipper. And Sam, well, good breeze, sunshine. I mean, this should be a fantastic start.
Yeah, Niall, it's looking perfect out there. Looks like there's about 15 knots of wind coming from the west, maybe gusting a little bit higher, up to 20 knots, coming off the shore, so it's going to be pretty shifty for that race course. Sunshine, flat water, just great conditions for the inshore part of this leg today.
Well, it's certainly going to be fantastic, and it's a big relief because we have had fickle breeze this week. Let's have a look at how the course is laid out here just off the shore of Alicante, because even though we've been talking about the long drag race to Cabo Verde, it starts here with some tight corners and some interesting manoeuvring just outside the city of Alicante before our 6 VO65s will push down to Tabarca, 2 marks just off the island that they have to leave to starboard before then pushing their way further out towards the Strait of Gibraltar and into the Atlantic. There is the view of the racetrack and the starting area, and the clock has already started. The starting signal with Infanta Cristina, the enormous ship you can see there, setting these VO65s off in style. And Sam, right at the moment, I mean, I think everything is looking pretty good, but I guess the biggest question is who should we be rooting for out on the water? We have 6 VO65s. They will all be looking to really attack these conditions and get their best maneuvers and tactical advantages in place to start this leg and find those leads early on. So let's take a rundown of the teams at the moment and have a little bit of a pick between who we think is going to be performing here. Well, let's start with the big name, Mirpuri Foundation Racing Team. They're from Portugal with skipper Pablo Antonio Fontes. They've been boasting 100% homegrown crew, and they are set to set the standard during the build-up of the race with a strong performance leading into this edition. Then Amber Sail 2, skipper Rokas Melavinkas. He's gone from rookie to skipper, now takes his Lithuanian team onto the water to begin stage 1, and he's built a strong team, racing as much for themselves as for their country, and it's the Atlantic section they're looking forward to. Team Yayo from Holland, skipper Jalma van Beek, another team boasting young and up-and-coming talent. For this first stage, they pulled in Bauer Becking, an ocean race heavyweight, and they will be hoping that this gives them the strong start they'll need. Wind Whisperer Racing Team and skipper Pablo Arate. Now, they won the import race here in Alicante, stretching away from the rest of the field as the wind went light. Now, this 4-time ocean race veteran will be hoping to do the same as stage 1 gets underway today. Mexico won the ocean race in 1973. Now Viva Mexico is here with skipper Eric Brockman, leading a team that is hoping to bridge that gap from the races past 50 years ago. Some big names, some big skill as well, and they'll be hoping for a strong performance. Austrian Ocean Racing, powered by Team Geneva, and skipper Gerwin Janssen coming into this event having led a passionate campaign. They'll be finishing in their home port of Geneva, Italy, but before there, they'll need to find their best speed in the opening 2 stages. Here are our VO65s getting ready for the start. There's been a lot of talk about the breeze here, and a lot of talk about what they're going to do for this start. Sam, it is a reaching start at the moment as we go on board here. And all the eyes right now looking out for the other teams. Picking the right place on this start line is always crucial.
Yeah, it's crucial. We can see on Yayo here, they're so close, the boats are so close, and just on that first shot I did see that they don't all have the same sail choices. So yeah, you can see Mirpuri deploying their masthead 0 and all the others on J1. So we're going to see what this different sail change is going to do.
Well, the start underway for the first of the offshore stages in the Ocean Race Sprint, and a good start from off the line. But the interesting thing for me, Sam, was this is meant to be a reaching start. They're meant to be able to lay this line very easily. It's got them pretty tight on an upwind course, actually. They didn't look like they were coming off that line at 90 degrees.
No, it looks pretty tight, and it looks like, especially for the lured boats, they only just made it past the pin, and potentially might not make it on one tack to the Mark 1.
Well, right now you can see Wind Whisperer Racing Team, the red hull on the right-hand side of your picture as we go to the helicopter overview. They are getting ready with what appears to be their masthead code 0. The breeze perhaps getting a fraction down, so the team's just thinking about changing to those sails. But right now, with this wind direction, they are going to have to do a manoeuvre on this first leg of the import section that they shouldn't be having to do. They are going to have to tack here, Sam. I mean, I hope they've prepared for this.
I'm sure they've prepared for every eventuality, and for sure now the wind has really dropped since just over the last 20 minutes. So it looks like the land's heating up, and that's going to change the wind here on the race course, and potentially tacking, and potentially lots of other manoeuvres to do before they manage to get offshore.
On board there with Wind Whisperer Racing Team, and they've added another, half boat length at least to that advantage. And the interesting thing for me, Sam, was during that import race, they started at the pin end. Arguably a risky place to start in terms of keeping the clear air, but they've managed to punch through. Right now, if the wind stays at this direction, then Wind Whisperer looks set to be able to crawl their way out ahead. But the wind is in what we would call a left-hand phase. If it swings back to the right, then that's where you can see Team Yayo and Milpuri Foundation Racing Team, all those boats to windward starting to come good. And in fact, just look at the difference in the angle here with Team Yayo, Sam. They're a lot higher, much tighter to the wind.
Yeah, it looks like the boats up to windward are doing a bit better. We can see Wind Whisper now have decided to deploy their masthead 0. Which they could see Mercury sailing pretty well up to windward of them. So sail change there from Wind Whisper, and looks like Mercury made the right choice.
On board at the moment with Team Yayo, skipper Jelmer van Beek, leading a team that includes 5 Dutch sailors under 30, and certainly of the 2 boats that we can see from that shot, Merpuri Foundation Racing Team and Amber Sail 2, they're to windward.
Looks really light there now, actually. They're Merpuri, they've got hardly any heel on, so these conditions are changing really, really quickly.
I know it's always hard to tell with these black sails, but it almost looked to me as well with that masthead code 0 on Merpuri Foundation Racing Team was struggling to set. But as we look at it now from the side, it's the Portuguese boat, Merpuri Foundation Racing Team, which is pushing ahead. Amber Sail 2 is struggling, and ahead of those two, Team Yayo, this boat here, they have stuck with their jib sail. They haven't put that masthead code 0 up. And these small decisions here, they have a huge consequence to the performance of the boat.
Exactly, but it's not easy to switch between the two for Yayo, because their masthead 0 is on the deck. So to change sail, they'll have to hoist the sail up before they can deploy it, and that's a lot of effort.
Wind Whisperer Racing Team still in the lead. Boat speed is good. It's the best of the fleet, over 8.5 knots. But as we look at where that first mark is, it's Mark 1. They are laying Mark 2. But so this tack is very much on here. This was not the intention of the race control team. We know that the breeze through this afternoon is going to put in some twists and turns and not stay in one place. And it's making life, well, I mean, for us viewing it, it's going to be a lot more interesting than just a drag race to Mark 1.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, yeah, you said this tack, but they're actually going to have to tack twice to get round that first mark, and that's a lot of effort and energy for the crew, who then have to go offshore for 5 days after all these manoeuvres. So yeah, it's always really hard when you've got all your gear on, ready to go offshore for the night, and then you've got to put these massive tacks in, and you get really hot and sweaty, and you have to go and change your clothes before you go offshore.
On board at the moment with Wind Whisperer Racing Team, 8.5 knots, and Right now, have a look at that heading there, 160 degrees. That's going to be something that the navigators are going to be keeping a very close eye on. And look at this, Mirpuri Foundation Racing Team, Sam, they have really bared away here. I'm guessing a head sail change.
I think they're struggling a little bit in the wind shadow from Team Yayo, I think, who's up to windward of them, and they have to bear away to keep the boat speed on and try and sail forward.
Get more speed, and now we have speed.
Yep.
So that's Mariana Lobato, who's I think she's doing the bow on Mirpuri for this leg. An amazing sailor, and it looks to me, we couldn't hear everything what she was saying, but she looked a little bit frustrated by their position currently on this first part of the leg.
And of course, there are miles to claim back any advantage that you've lost, but this is crucial. Just this bit, as you were saying before, it's that advantage that you want to gain, is that confidence boost. But look at this masthead code 0 here on Wind Whisperer Racing Team. They haven't got the disadvantage of having anyone to windward of them. They've got the freshest breeze, but they are having to strap that sail right in.
Yeah, that's they're fully trimmed on maximum they can, and you probably see the sail will be touching the spreaders to leeward, so they can't put it in any tighter than that. But they've got to try and get their boat as pointing as high as possible to minimise the distance they're going to sail when they have to tack and effectively zigzag up towards Mach 1.
Following here, Amber Sail 2 with Team Yayo, the green head sail wedged in between them, and Wind Whisperer with the red hull just coming into view on the right-hand side. These three boats at the moment, different head sail choices. The masthead code 0, the big, what we would probably say is a more traditional reaching sail. It's usable upwind, but of course, if this breeze starts coming back up here, then Team Yayo, the Dutch team, will be very glad that they have stuck with a more traditional head sail choice.
Also the Dutch team, and I think they're just throwing into attack there. It's so much easier to tack with the J1 up. They can just flip those tacks through and get the boat going again really quickly, whereas the boats with the masthead 0 have got to furl it up to be able to tack and then redeploy the sail afterwards. Oh, and there we go, a tack change from Team Yayo. That's pretty cool manoeuvre to do, because obviously they've deployed the sail during the tack, so they've minimised the downtime, so to speak, of the boat speed during the tack.
Well, right now on the import section of stage 1 of the Ocean Race Sprint, we have two boats on port tack. One of them, Team Yayo, that we're watching at the moment. The other at the back, for the moment at least, the Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva. There is that tack change. That enormous head sail there having to be pulled down, that big jib having to be pulled down, hanked onto the forestay for the VO65s, and a good deployment of the masthead code 0, already in, tight, trimmed. But let's take a look at exactly where that fleet has set up. So as I was saying, we've got two boats now coming across on starboard, Team Yayo and the Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva. Wind Whisperer still in the lead, but Sam, what should be a reach to Mark 1, now the fleet widening up, it's very tricky if you're in first place to try and lock down the attacks from either side.
Yeah, they're going to still be really close when they come into Mark 1, and we can see Wind Whisper, they've just tacked as well. Looks like they're on the ley line, so they'll be heading straight towards Mark 1, and they'll have to do the tack as they round the mark to head towards Mark 2. And the next question is, so is this going to make the leg from Mark 2 to 3, instead of being a reaching leg, is going to be more downwind, or can the race committee change the course?
Well, I think this course is designed to kind of swallow up any small variations in the breeze, but this has been a big one, and it rolled in just before the start. The start happens on time no matter what, and here we are. Wind Whisperer Racing Team now coming across on port tack from the left-hand side of the course, the side of the course that they were leading on. Some big names on this boat at the moment. We've got Pablo Arata at the back, just one hand on the backstage just to check that the runner has come on. But also, Sam, Neil McDonald I saw hanging around the boat on the dock and stepping on board for this first stage.
Yeah, I think Neil's on board for most of the sprint, and it's great to see him offshore, bringing all his experience. He's one of my sailing heroes, all-time sailing heroes.
On board at the moment with Wind Whisperer Racing Team. That's a good view for any sailor there when you're looking back behind you off the quarter to see where your competition is. But to leeward of Wind Whisperer Racing Team is this boat here, Team Yayo, along with Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva. These three boats are on port tack heading over to the right-hand side. As Sam was pointing out earlier, they've got at least one more tack to go, and a little bit of activity on board here, and that's going to give us some clue as to when we're going to go for this next tack. And moving some sails here, change of the stack. I mean, what does this indicate here, Sam?
I think I was looking at the stacks. They've got different boats have different choices. Obviously, the sails are on deck for this part of the leg, whereas in the inshore race we didn't see any other sails on deck. Obviously, they want all those sails out there ready so that when they go offshore, they can quickly get the stack in the right place and optimize the boat speed. So yeah, I think they'll be dragging them forward because the wind is lighter than planned, to get that weight forward and try and reduce the wetted surface area of the hull.
On board with Team Yayo and moving those sail bags, incredibly heavy sailcloth, moving that weight forward rather than for a sail change, just to keep the trim of the boat, the balance of the boat right for the conditions. The look over their corner, the competitors at the moment, and Team Yayo right now in second place. It's the Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva to leeward. And they haven't had the best beginning to stage one. They came off that line poorly. Now they're deploying their masthead code 0, but they are going to be coming in on that starboard ley line to that first mark. So they do have an option here to come in with some rights.
Yeah, so this could be an interesting mark rounding, because they're all pretty close still, and there's some big manoeuvres to get right, to nail off, and to be able to get around that mark and heading towards Mark 2.
That is where they're aiming for. Bottom right-hand side of your screen, that white square, that's Mark 1. It does look to be Wind Whisperer still in the lead. They've got a strong tactical position over the top of Team Yayo, and right there, just sailing with a little bit of a gust as well, getting themselves set up for what should be their last tack before rounding. Team Yayo to leeward, but a little bit bow forward. They are going for the tack, and Sam, it's a good opportunity to see just how much work is needed to tack the boats with these masthead code 0s.
Yeah, they will have connected all 3 pedestals in to furl that sail, so there'll be 6 people grinding that sail to furl it, and then grinding on the new winch to trim it, fully trim it on. And you can see there's other people on other winches with the top handles in, because the grinders are all on the sheet. You've got to also top handle the runner and top handle the board down. So there's tons of work to be done in attack, and it's pretty tiring.
Wind Whisperer Racing Team picking the right ley line, and now bearing away round the top of the course. The first leg of this import section, including 2 tacks that were never really designed to be there, but the Polish team picking the right breeze, picking the right angles, and managing to get themselves around.
So this is going to be a short reach on this dog leg, before then potentially is going to be a downwind leg back up to Mark 3.
On the top of that picture just there, we can see the Austrian Ocean Racing Project. They have tacked and they have parked up a little bit. Meanwhile, Wind Whisperer Racing Team finding some good breeze at the windward edge of the course. On that reach, still working hard, still trimming those sails as we get a little chance to see on board as well. And it's always nice when you're a sailor, when you need to look up and have a look at the competition and it is behind you. But here's a nice moment here for Team Yayo coming in. They have rights coming in on starboard, but no matter, they will be across the bows of Amber Sail 2, coming in on port tack from the right-hand side of your picture. So first round at the first mark, Wind Whisperer Racing Team, then Team Yayo, and now Amber Sail 2 looking for a tack. And this tack needs to be good if they want to stay on the heels of the Dutch boat in front of them. Amber Sail 2 furling that masthead code 0, and it looks good, but that tack and bear away, it's a lot of rudder. It's a big turn to put into one maneuver.
Yeah, it's slow to get the boats going again, and they look like they're pretty close, so they've held the deploy to make sure they get past the mark, to not risk getting the sail or the sheet touching the mark as they go around the mark. So losing a little bit there with that tight rounding, and maybe you can see Mirpuri sailing team maybe slightly better with their tack and their mark rounding, catching up a little bit with that slightly better maneuver.
Next to come into the mark, it's Viva Mexico with skipper Eric Brockman, and one more turn here. And Sam, there's a little bit of a maneuver here on these reaches to what they're going to do with their keels and their dagger balls. But right now, let's go on board with Viva Mexico. We just see how hard they've got to work. And the view off the back of Viva Mexico, showing Austrian Ocean Racing power by Team Geneva.
So you can see they're deploying that big deploy, how hard it is to grind. It looked like they were not all on the sheet winch. I think they only had 2 grinders on the deploy, and that made it a little bit harder for them.
Look at the lead now for Wind Whisperer Racing Team. I mean, everyone will be thinking back to that import. Everyone will be thinking that this was the team that managed to come off the line well, hold on to their first place, and then extend. And it looks like in the opening stages of stage 1, Wind Whisperer Racing Team are doing the same again in the waters of Alicante.
Yeah, they seem to got everything right. It's all going well for their Wind Whisperer. They've chosen the right strategy, and the crew have nailed the maneuvers, which maybe weren't really the maneuvers that were in the game plan probably when they left the dock, and they've managed to adapt to these changing conditions really well, and get those tacks off perfectly.
Wind Whisperer Racing Team in first place onto the downwind section of this course, a section that wasn't meant to be downwind, but the wind shifts are coming in here thick and fast in Alicante. And Sam, you know the VO65, you've taken one around the world. They're still with that masthead code 0 downwind. It's not the only sail they could use.
No, it's not the only sail. They now have an A2 as well, which is a spinnaker, and I believe they can fell that spinnaker as well. But right now in these winds are quite light. I don't think it's worth making the sail change to the spinnaker.
Well, if you want to keep yourself up to date with all the action here, scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner. That will direct you to the Eurosport video page, where you can watch all the exciting highlights from recent and current port races, as well as stay informed with interviews and news from the ocean race as we make our way around the world. Team Yayo now round, and look at that, it's been a long time since we saw Wind Whisperer Racing Team round that mark. You know, the lead is getting bigger and bigger for the Polish.
Yeah, it's definitely a comfortable lead for them, and but what's good is that the rest of the fleet are really close, so we could see some place changing in this downwind leg as well, because we've got jibes, choices to be made. It's not a reaching leg anymore, so there are options to be able to catch up or for some place changing.
Just having a little flick through some of the data coming off the boats from the water right now, and Wind Whisperer racing team have been putting in some of the strongest numbers, some of the highest peak speeds. It is just a snapshot, but they've been hitting almost 11 knots of boat speed, and the only other boat that's been doing something similar is this one here, Merpuri Foundation Racing Team, the team that we would expect to be, well, the favourites and sort of setting down the pace, but I think that crown has to go to the Polish team. Merpuri Foundation Racing Team at the moment on the windward side of Amber Sail 2 as we just go round that top of the course. We're now onto the long downwind leg. We're going to see some jibes on this leg, not meaning to, but look at this, look at the change in the wind right now just in front of Merpuri Foundation Racing Team. I mean, is that coming from the helicopter? Is that coming from something local?
Yeah, it looks like the wind's a little bit all over the place there, and Merpuri doing the right thing, getting the weight forward, not making things complicated for themselves. I saw that one of the other boats is deploying a stay sail, but they've kept just with the 2 sails and trying to do the best they can to keep the boat moving forwards.
Antonio Fontes, skipper of Merpuri Foundation Racing Team, just walking up to the front. Amber Sail 2 to leeward of the Portuguese team, managing to find their way through. I mean, that was an enormous wind shift, a bubble in the breeze, and these two boats are both caught in it. They've really had to head up hard here. Ahead of them, Team Yayo sailing on a bit of a better course, but their speed has dropped down to only 2 knots. So we are in a bit of a park up here, and Sam, they've chosen to have these big masthead code zeros. It does make reacting to these changes in the breeze that little bit harder.
Yeah, a little bit harder, but it's the easiest sail, I guess, to use, because you can furl it up, you can jibe quickly. They did the right thing to not think about using an A2 or a spinnaker for this leg.
Well, a little bit of an interesting moment here. We've got the Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva coming up on starboard. Viva Mexico wanting to jibe over there, and I think here clearly forcing the Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva with Gerwin Janssen on the helm, forcing them to jibe over. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen there, exactly what the jury will think of that, but Viva Mexico at the moment with that masthead code 0 now furled, and a little bit of a place change. It is at the back of the field, but there is sometimes an advantage when the breeze goes very patchy like this. Sometimes there's an advantage to be behind. You can see what's coming.
Yeah, you can see what's coming, and you can try and avoid the wind holes, as we saw. Obviously they're jibing to try and avoid that hole in the wind that unfortunately Merpuri and Amber Sail sailed into, and it's must be it's a tough one. If you look all over the race course, there's all the boats are doing different boat speeds right now in all different angles.
But the speeds are starting to come back up. I think that we have been expecting a big change in the breeze. We've got the Mocha departure for leg 1 of the ocean race coming up in about an hour's time, and we knew there was going to be a wind change. At one point, it looks like it's fallen on the VO65s here, and, well, somebody who's been able to exploit it at least has been Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva, sitting now on that windward bow forward position on Viva Mexico. Merpuri Foundation Racing Team also potentially being caught out on the right hand side, but look at the differences in speed. Barely 4 knots towards the top of the course, with 8 knots with Team Yayo in the middle, and Wind Whisperer just a little bit behind, around about halfway down this leg. I think the advantage for Wind Whisperer being in the lead, it's got to feel like a kind of a poison chalice right now, because you might be sailing into the hole, the teams behind you will see it and be able to sail round. Nerves will be very, very, very frayed on the Polish boat.
Yeah, it's definitely the moment where they'll be trying to get the heads out of the boat and looking around, trying to find the best wind where there is a little bit of wind, trying to avoid the no wind zones, looking at what's happening coming from the land. It's really tricky when you've got this gradient coming from hot land. It's probably the trickiest situation. But I think there on Wind Whisperer, maybe we can see again the experience showing, and I know Axel Magdal again is a very experienced navigator and weather expert who knows Alicante pretty well too, so I wouldn't be surprised if he'd have had people posted along the shore and up the mountains prior to the start to get all the information he could just before the race set off.
Well, just to provide a little bit of context there, I mean, that's because that's what he did for you, wasn't it? In Team SCA, you are used to seeing the attention to detail that Axel Magdal brings to this. And at the moment, we can't rule out any more wind changes, but as we go to the virtual graphic, Team Yayo at the moment to the left, out of picture on the right-hand side, Wind Whisperer Racing Team, and I think right now, with the wind at the moment, they've played this most recent shift really nicely. They're almost laying the bottom of the course. They've still got around about 2,500 meters to go before they get to the bottom, but they could almost, maybe with a touch more pressure, they wouldn't need to jibe.
Yeah, I think they've obviously maybe a little bit of being in the right place at the right time, but yeah, they're definitely the boat that sailed the least distance, and that's made a difference.
Interesting to see the forward crew member sitting on the right-hand side of Wind Whisperer with the binoculars and pointing out to the back what's going on in front. And just as we say that, you can see Wind Whisperer turning up to their left, our right, and that might be meaning that the wind going a little bit light or shifting again, but they've survived so far those shifts. As now, Sam, we saw this in the import race. Talk us through it.
So this is the baton kicker. So it's a job you got to like heights to be able to do this one. So there it's the bowman who's up the rig. Obviously these full baton sails, depending on the baton tension, more or less easy to flip through. When the wind's really light and you've got a masthead zero funneling the wind through behind the mainsail, it's really hard to pop those battens through. And this guy's even up there is having a struggle. He's got to really throw his whole weight onto the sail to be able to push that batten through. And it could be that maybe they've tightened those batten tensions just a little bit too much, perhaps because of the weather forecast that's coming up.
Or if they don't manage to pop it, they are going to be going slow for the next few boat lengths. Watching the foredeck on board Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva, and I think congratulations are in order, because that last flying kick, just managing to pop those full-length battens in their mainsail. It's not going to be the only time they need to do it, because we're going to see this boat jibing again, but this team coming off the line behind the others, sailing that first upwind leg, struggling for pace compared with the other teams, but they managed to make good as the boats in front of them just parked up around Mark II. Now they're heading downwind on the left-hand side as we look down the course, and they've got Viva Mexico, which they have overtaken on their right, but just ahead as we go on board here with skipper Gerwin Jansen, they have got Mirpuri Foundation Racing Team, Ambersail 2, and perhaps Team Yayo just coming into view. But the boat out in the lead, Wind Whisperer Racing Team, they have sailed, well, is it luck, is it skill? I mean, surely it's skill, because they did the same in the import race. They have picked their way through the pockets of no breeze, the shifts and everything. And Sam, a little bit of action on the bow here. So they are, I mean, they seem like they are very astutely preparing for breeze that we can't really see yet.
Yeah, it's difficult from our viewpoint now, where we can't see everything, but it does look like, first of all, they've picked up more breeze as they come up towards that top mark. They're going faster than the others and extending that lead. And yeah, there was Nettie up on the bow sorting out the sails for potentially for the beat that is going to be coming up.
Looks windy there for me. Looks windy to me.
So So you can hear, I think that was Neil McDonald's voice. They're looking up the racecourse and they're trying to work out the breeze. He was saying, looks windy to me. I think they're trying to figure out whether they change to the J1 for the upwind leg. Obviously that's a big call for them to make, and they're the leading boat, so they can't watch what the one in front does. They're going to be the one that everyone else is watching.
We're pretty lucky to get this front row view as we are on board still with Wind Whisperer Racing Team. We get to enjoy both now, and we were saying earlier that if they got a little bit more pressure, or indeed if that breeze went a little bit right, they would be laying Mark III, the bottom of the run, and it's happened now. And I would say that they've got a little bit of both here. They look a lot more pressed than they were before, but also with a lot more breeze. And in fact, the top of that mainsail just starting to luff a little bit with the back winding from the masthead Code Zero. They're almost now a little bit excess power.
Yeah, you can see well, from the previous images, we could see the canted keel fully canted up to windward, so they've got max power now, and they're easing their sails. That's a lot of heel angle. We're sailing the 65s with up to 30-degree heel angle, which is a lot, and yeah, I think they're up to the upper limit of range of the sail there.
And compare that heel to the other two boats that we can see here. Merpuri Foundation Racing Team just going out of view on the left, and Team Yayo and Wind Whisperer Racing Team are certainly heeled over, but the breeze now is with Team Yayo as well. Jelmer van Beek on the wheel, pushing the boat down. They'll be very relieved now that they're in breeze, and it's enough to also push them down towards the bottom of the course, and that might be an advantage to the boats in second and third. For Team Yayo, Ambersell 2, Merpuri Foundation Racing Team, they've all been pushed down to this mark, meaning that Wind Whisperer Racing Team might have sailed a little bit of extra distance compared to these teams. So the question of who will be leading as we exit Alicante, not yet decided. Still some time for the Polish to perhaps lose that lead.
And we've got coming into this mark, so now we've got a sail change to do. There's breezes on, so it's not going to be so easy to foul the masthead zero. Changing to the J1, so they've all got to nail that manoeuvre, which is probably the first time we see them doing a manoeuvre in the breeze, and let's see who can do that best. Team Yayo there, they've already got their J1 up, not trimmed on, so that they're keeping the maximum pressure in the masthead zero, so you've got to let your J1 flap until you're ready to trim on and furl and switch sails. But they've done an early hoist to be sure they get everything right.
This breeze is providing all sorts of challenges for the sailors right now. Every single time it seems like they decide this is the sail to use, this is the angle that's best. The wind either increases, decreases, changes direction. They've really got to stay on their toes, and we are now, thankfully for them at least, coming down to the bottom of that downwind section. They'll be certainly pretty happy to leave, I think, this tough import section of stage one and get out into a little bit more of the open Mediterranean Sea, where the decisions aren't quite so pressing. Team Yayo leading Merpuri Foundation Racing Team, but ahead of the Dutch boat is Wind Whisperer Racing Team, and there you can see just how much that shift has brought Team Yayo back into the game here as the Dutch boat bears away now for the furl of the masthead Code Zero, as Merpuri Foundation Racing Team closer to camera also making a change with that J sail coming up and the masthead Code Zero getting ready to go away. It's going to be here the battle of the sail changes. Whoever gets this change smoothly will be closing up the distance between the Polish boat in first place. Wind Whisperer Racing Team down to the bottom of the course. Mark III. 2 more marks to go round here before we then start making our way out into the Mediterranean and on to Cabo Verde. There should be a very short distance between Mark III and Mark IV. It should have just been a very simple case of just hardening up, pulling in your sails, but it will be attack here. The breeze has shifted back to where the race management team were assuming it would come from. The wind is up as well. That's why we're seeing that masthead Code Zero go away. One more tack to go here for Wind Whisperer Racing Team. Well, the boat that you can see all the way at the top of your picture, shall we say, languishing a little bit behind, is Viva Mexico. Eric Brockman, you saw at the top of the course, trying to jibe for the best of the breeze. They got forced to hold that jibe by Austrian Ocean Racing, powered by Team Geneva, and they have been left behind as the new wind has flowed in from the other side of the course. Merpuri Foundation Racing Team now rounding the bottom in second place, and plenty of breeze as well.
Yeah, it's looking like great sailing conditions up here at the top of the course, and I'm just wondering whether, I guess they're probably going to leave those masthead zeros up in the air, because potentially they're going to sail back out of the breeze as they head back south towards the leaving gate.
Amber Sail 2, the boat to the right-hand side of picture, and then Merpuri Foundation Racing Team just behind them in fourth. And Rokas Melevincas now, that was a smooth furl for the masthead code 0. They're just trying to line themselves up for the perfect turn around Mark 3.
It's pretty close.
This turn absolutely crucial here, and I wonder why. That is why Amber Sail 2, the boat at the bottom of your picture, Rokas Melevincas was just wanting to hold that turn, get a tight exit here, just to really damage the breeze that's going into Merpuri Foundation Racing Team in fourth place.
Yeah, they want to protect that because obviously they're going to have to tack, and they don't want Merpuri to come up and prevent them from tacking on the ley line.
Merpuri Foundation Racing Team now around in fourth place, and each of these boats minutes really behind Wind Whisperer Racing Team, and that might not seem like much, but they are fighting hard for every second here. So the Polish boat Wind Whisperer Racing Team have, I'm going to say it, stolen the crown of favourites for performance from Merpuri Foundation Racing Team. This boat here, Wind Whisperer Racing Team, they put in an incredible performance in the import race last weekend, and they haven't put a foot wrong so far here in Alicante. Well, they're on starboard tack, and as Sam was saying earlier, that masthead code 0 is still up. Team Yayo to the left and behind, tacking earlier than Wind Whisperer Racing Team. Perhaps the tack here from the leaders, the Polish boat, wanting just to get over and sit on top of Team Yayo in second place. Surely the only boat that they're really worried about right now.
Yeah, I guess that's the safe manoeuvre to protect that their lead, and this is obviously a long reach. They've decided that the breeze is in now and they don't need to leave that masthead 0 up in the air. Obviously that creates a lot of air drag, so these boats have got a lot of crew on board, so it's easy, in inverted commas, to drop that down and maximize the boat speed and not have that up in the air dragging, slowing the boat down.
Simultaneous decision on board Wind Whisperer Racing Team and Team Yayo. As you say, Sam, the breeze, they certainly seem confident that it's established itself and the masthead code 0 is coming down. Worth just mentioning at this point that all of these boats do have guests on board. They're not doing the full leg, they're not doing the full 2,000 miles. They have jumped off at the back of these boats, and they're going to get picked up straight away. But what a way to send your team off. Hold on for the first couple of legs of the import section, pat them on the back, and then jump over the side. Team Yayo here, they are making a strong performance of that leeward position right now. They tacked early after Mark 4, so they have a little bit of leverage off to that left-hand side. And if the breeze goes to the left, they should be doing quite nicely. But as I say that, here comes a little tack for them. They want to go out to the other side.
And their Wind Whisper following them. So obviously maybe it's something we didn't, maybe a wind shift we didn't quite see, Niall, and these crews are just on it, on the numbers, and obviously that tack, you've got to have the foredeck clear to be able to throw that tack in, and so the foredeck crew have been working really hard to clear the bow during as quickly as possible after dropping the masthead 0, so that they can do a clean tack. So yeah, pressure on the whole crew to be able to let the tactician go where he wants to go.
You are completely right there, Sam. I mean, this is the tack really for the ley line. That pressure already taking them towards the top of the course, as we have simultaneous onboards and helicopter shots of Wind Whisperer Racing Team. And worth just pointing out that the leeward daggerboard all the way down, meaning that that keel fully swung up to windward at the moment. They're having to use that leeward dagger board. That gives us some indication as how the breeze has improved since that light spot on the other side of the racetrack. Now, the Polish boat, Wind Whisperer Racing Team, tacking over. It's such a different maneuver with only the J sail up.
Yeah, and he's almost looks to me like he's made a gain there and crossing quite far clear ahead of Team Yayo and going around this second mark, and so they'll should be reaching to the gate now, and it looks like there's still enough breeze to do that on a J1, but I think the foredeck crew are doing everything they can to get the next sail ready, and we can see the rest of the crew bringing all the stack up to windward, because I think this starboard tack now is going to be quite a long one to take them down south to the further gate at the islands.
Team Yayo, second place, the Dutch boat now tacking round, and they'll be pleased with this performance here. I mean, Jarmo van Beek doing a great job, putting some pressure on Wind Whisperer Racing Team. Ultimately wasn't to be, but let's have a look at that delta there, 43 seconds. So Team Yayo hot on their heels and arguably getting a little bit closer as the race goes on. But if you're watching these two boats now round that last turning mark and you're wondering why it is they seem a little bit more relaxed, that's because the course has sort of returned to form, a little bit more of a drag race now. So all those ins and outs and tactical decisions and fighting for the lead, that's kind of behind them, certainly for the immediate future. Wind Whisperer Racing Team is going to hold on to first place as they lead the fleet out. Team Yayo will be comfortable in second place, and I think certainly they should be pleased with their performance here in Alicante. The stack to windward in the middle of the boat on Wind Whisperer Racing Team. And Sam, I'm looking at a lot of these sailors, and at the moment they're still in their t-shirts, but they're going to have to change that pretty shortly as we watch Mirpuri Foundation Racing Team hot on their heels of Amber Sail 2. Both of these boats needing to get around that last mark, and it's close for the Portuguese here.
Yeah, that was quite a big duck. They had to go duck behind Amber Sail, so they're happy to be. They'll be happy to have caught up a little bit and have a boat to try and overtake on this next reaching leg.
Just see how much Amber Sail 2 were over that ley line. They've already started bearing away, and that was a very good position for them to force Mirpuri Foundation Racing Team to making that decision to go behind. So Amber Sail 2, Rokas Melevink as the skipper, they are round in third place. The Lithuanian team getting the better of the Portuguese for now. Mirpuri Foundation Racing Team in fourth place. But right now, let's check in with some of the other drama that's out there on the water. We have got jumpers on all of these boats needing to get themselves off these boats. And this was the scene on board Viva Mexico.
Oh, no somersaults. Just a straight feet in jump. That's a classic. I give him 5 out of 10 for that.
It's a fantastic way to get out there on the boats and enjoy that racing, and also just to give everybody that really nice send-off. The guests on board jumping off with full survival suit, they'll get picked out of the water straight away. The reason they're doing it now is because we are starting to stretch out as we go on board here with Mirpuri Foundation Racing Team to that more offshore part of this challenge. Sam, it's a mentality shift, it's a gear change, clothing. I mean, what kind of things are they going to have to do now over the next, what, hour?
Just interrupt you, Niall. I think we've got a live jumper coming up, so let's listen to them.
Will we see a somersault here? Oh, what a disappointment. Oh, we just lost picture, but we've just got it. Let's stay with it. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's a good 5 out of 10 here. We're hoping we're going to build on that as we make our way around the ocean race sprint.
So yeah, the crews, you were saying, Niall, that they're changing mode, as we say, and heading out of this short pretty frantic course onto the first longer leg heading south. They're going to have to go around a last mark around some islands just south of Alicante, and then basically getting into that offshore mode. Have we got the stack right? Have we? When do we get into a watch system? Let's make the boat go as fast as possible. The trim. There'll be some of the guys who are completely drenched with sweat from all that grinding and sail changing. So there'll be a few crew members kind of wanting to change a t-shirt before they get too cold.
And unfortunately, I mean, we've got a market here, Viva Mexico. They are back in 6th place, and they're not on this final reach through the start line and then out through the last leaving gate and then into the Mediterranean. Unfortunately, that decision to hold that jibe, something I think that they kind of had to do, that forced them into that bubble, and they are forced to watch these two teams stretching out in the lead, certainly Wind Whisperer Racing Team and Team Yayo. Team Yayo already on the right hand side of your picture with that masthead code 0. Wind Whisperer Racing Team getting ready to deploy, but always in sailing here, Sam, that windward position, it's a comfortable one. The pressure's not on you to make the decisions quite so quickly.
Yeah, it's a little bit safer because obviously you don't have any worry about having any wind shadow from the boat to windward, and to be the leeward boat you're always looking at your position, and the windward boat is kind of controlling your angle and your boat speed a little bit, but personally it's great to have a boat just alongside. It's the best way to be sure that you've got your boat going as fast as possible, and when you go off into that first night, it's always nice to have someone just next to you to push, to be able to push a little bit harder if you're not quite sure if you've got the right trim set up. There's nothing better than having a boat right there to, if they're going a bit faster, then you can just keep looking and make your boat go faster.
On board with Team Yayo, Jelmer van Beek on the helm. And just going out of shot there, but on the bottom right hand corner, Bauer Becking, ocean race legend, on board to share his wisdom for this first stage and wish the crew well. Now the Polish team, Wind Whisperer Racing Team.
So they're just, I think they're just bringing on the tack line, putting the tension in the masthead 0, so you can see that cable tightening up, and they'll be deploying that masthead 0 any minute now, I think.
See the work on the foredeck at the moment of Wind Whisperer Racing Team as they get ready to change. That bag going forward, opening up. I mean, this is the point now where you really need to start thinking about keeping everything nice and tidy, because you're in this now for a week.
Yeah, and I think there's been there's a lot of spaghetti with all the ropes, the sheets, the tack lines, the furling lines. There's tons of traps to fall into if you're not really rigorous with every single maneuver, and like putting the bag down every time they change sails, it will go in the bag, it will get tidied away. You've got to be ready for anything, and you never really know, especially here in the Med, what the wind's going to throw at you next. So I think that's the foredeck crew are just always trying to anticipate one move ahead and try and anticipate what the wind's going to do and what the tactician's going to decide to do.
There's been a lot of conversation about how upwind, how tight to the breeze we were going to see these VO65s and ultimately the IMOCAs as they exit Alicante. And the fact that we have got wind here and we are deploying the masthead code 0s with enough certainty to get the rest of the sails down and sort of packed away means that they're confident that they're going to be blasting away from the shoreline here out into that proper breeze. But this is going to be going on from this point day and night. You've sailed around the world on the VO65s. At what point do you start saying, well, somebody better get some sleep now?
I think it's almost more important to be sure to get the best start, and you know, everyone's going to give everything they can, and it's great for the crew morale to be the first boat out offshore into that first night. And I think for these teams, it's actually all about getting out of the Mediterranean. I thought Bauer was going to say something, but no. So yeah, it's that.
Well, whether we can bring you that comment from Baubeking live or in replay, all of the action here from the water is going to be covered in detail by Eurosport, and we brought the QR code to you earlier, and it's going to be important here because, of course, these boats offshore, in the crew, an onboard reporter, an OBR, their sole job really is to bring us all the drama from on board. Photographs, videos, interviews, everything. So we will be keeping up minute by minute and certainly trying to beam that out to you as much as possible as these boats weave their way down to Cabo Verde. And Sam, is it just me? Is it just my enthusiasm, or is the breeze picked up a little bit here? Maybe they've just turned off the wind a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like that the breeze has picked up, and I just saw that they've just gone past that final gate. We saw the yellow mark rush past, or the boats rush past the yellow mark. Team Yayo, they've already deployed their J3 as a stay sail, and I guess Nettie and his team on the bow of Wind Whisperer will have that on their job list of the next thing to do. Or potentially, or do they see something else, and do they think the breeze is going to change again? And they just want to concentrate on getting those sails trimmed well. And yeah, there's a big heel angle. The mains are well eased, so they're getting to the upper end of the range of this sail configuration.
Perfect shot from the helicopter here to see the difference in breeze. Team Yayo, I mean, we were saying before that leeward position that Team Yayo had wasn't really a threat. But look at that, up to the top of the corner, just going out of view on the right-hand side of the helicopter. You could see Austrian Ocean Racing, powered by Team Geneva, struggling with that masthead code 0. The dark patches across the water here, meaning that there is more breeze to come.
Yeah, you have to be really reactive on the trim with these massive sails up, and really have a great communication between the main sheet trimmer and the masthead 0 trimmer. Obviously they have to be eased together so that helm stays stable and the boat doesn't round up and luff up, and the boats, they'll probably be happy that they've passed that final gate, because they can actually maybe power down in the big breezes, in the big gusts, and max, get the best out of the boats and really accelerate in those gusts.
Interesting to look at the deltas here. The difference was 43 seconds between Wind Whisperer Racing Team and Team Yayo. Now it's only 10, as we focus now on Merpuri Foundation Racing Team and Amber Sail 2. Merpuri Foundation Racing Team behind to windward, Amber Sail 2. A little bit bow forward, but this is going to be a drag race here that, well, certainly might keep the sailors working hard for the next few hours, because the next turning point is going to be the mark at Tabarka Islands, but realistically they're going to be on this course or something similar for the next 5-6 hours.
Yeah, which looks like a course that's going to be changing between, is it a masthead 0 or is it a J1? So I think that's going to be the question in the heads of all the sailors. They'll be watching the other boats to see what sail they've got up. And as I was saying earlier, the crews are just going to be ready to change at any moment, and there's not going to be much rest going on.
Rokas Melavinkas, as the skipper of the Lithuanian boat Amber Sail 2 on the right-hand side of your picture, is going to have to work hard here, because look at this Merpuri Foundation Racing Team just putting the bow down, just bearing away a little bit as that gust comes on, and that is just free speed for them. Every single time that they can gain a metre, half a boat length forward, it's just going to strip the breeze out of Amber Sail 2's sails. So the advantage, certainly with Merpuri Foundation Racing Team at the moment, windward position, meaning that they are going to be able to attack.
Looks to me like the Merpuri, they're a little bit more organised, and they've got everyone up on the rail, and that's the right thing to do, is to just get the weight up and get past that boat as quickly as possible.
Amber Sail 2, the crew working hard at the moment, trying to match the pace of Merpuri Foundation Racing Team to windward. And look at this, just as we zoomed in there on Amber Sail 2 and now pulled out, it's a boat length to the advantage of the Portuguese boat. The racing here in Alicante as the boat starts stage 1, certainly very fierce, as the breeze is providing plenty of power. The very first edition of the Ocean Race Sprint, and our 6 VO65s are now well on their way out from Alicante. Speeds approaching 18, 19 knots. And certainly one sailor amongst the fleet, Bauer Becking, has got an awful lot of experience of what it takes to take these boats around the world. Let's have a little bit of a listen to him.
Yeah, the start was okay. We were a little bit too early, and the Polish were on the pin, got again the start. But I think you just know with Matan, he's excellent at doing that. But I think kudos to the crew, they did an excellent job. We did the right manoeuvres, and I think we just kept the game really conservative. But I think in the end it was quite good to go fast with the mast at zero, and you can actually see the Polish adjust the weather was over here. So yeah, not a bad start of the day.
Smiles for Bauer Becking on board Team Yayo. I mean, I'm sure he's pleased with his performance. He's also probably pleased to be out in the water, where arguably that's where he belongs. So it was pretty wild out in the water here at Alicante for this stage one of the very first ocean race sprint. 1,900 miles of racing to go, but the first few miles certainly had a little bit of everything. Some big breeze, some light winds, and some big shifts as well. Let's take a little bit of a look back at exactly how everything happened here. You can keep up to date with all of the racing out on the water. It's going to be pretty fierce, and certainly the sailors are going to be fighting for every mile they can. You can follow it all on the oceanrace.com, as well as on Discovery Plus and Eurosport for all the updates going. And later on this afternoon at 15:30 CET, we are going to be there to cover our 5 high-tech hydrofoiling AMOCAs out on the water. Alicante has certainly put on the performance for the VO65s, and I'm sure it'll do it again for the AMOCAs here at the Ocean Race.